Brother lads, welcome back to the Cossy Arsenal podcast. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. This is the latest Arsenal news and transfer news. Now, according to the BBC, Arsenal could consider a player plus cash deal for Bruno Guimaraez this summer, and that could be because Newcastle are one of the clubs that have to sell before the end of this month. Now, it's not yet known whether Newcastle would actually agree to such a deal, but of course, Newcastle would want to sign ESR from Arsenal, and maybe that's what Arsenal are looking at. Could Arsenal really get into a player plus cash deal for Bruno Guimaraez? Could Newcastle accept that deal? That's what we're going to talk about. And also, how desperate do Arsenal need a number 6? I've just seen Declan Rice 2 games in a row play in that number 6 role for England. And I'm going to tell you this, guys. He must not play there. You must have a player. We must get a player. We still have Jorginho, we still have Thomas Partey, but for the long run, Arsenal must get a player that can dictate the game. Arsenal must get a player that is brave enough to carry the ball, to break through the lines, and play in that number 6. It cannot be Declan Rice. But I want your thoughts on a player plus cash deal for Bruno Guimaraez. Which player would you give in plus cash, and how much, honestly, for you to get Bruno Guimaraez? And exactly, I also want to know which player would you sacrifice? I mean, the couple of players that Arsenal are looking to get rid of. Ramsdale is one player that has been wanted by Newcastle, so probably that could be a deal you could do there. ESR is a player that has been wanted by Newcastle, so that's another deal that you could do there as well. Now, let's start off with Bruno Guimaraez and the role he would play in this Arsenal team. I wouldn't really mind giving out a player plus some cash for Guimaraez, right? I think if Arsenal are serious about this, we can give Ramsdale to Newcastle plus 70 million, and we can get that deal done. Or we can get ESR plus 60 or 55 million, and we can get that deal done. Now, the reason that's why I said we cannot give out ESR or Ramsdale to Napoli for a deal for Osimhen is I kind of feel like ESR or Ramsdale going to Napoli, especially ESR who is wanted by Napoli, that wouldn't be a very good deal for us. But Arsenal desperately need a number 6. We need a good number 6, and it has been reported widely that Arsenal have decided to sign a number 6 over a number 8 this summer. And there is a reason as to why Mikel has decided to do that. There's a reason as to why we have gone for a DM in midfield rather than a CM. I'm not going to really buy into all that crap of Arsenal cannot find a good number 8 on the market. They're not good, attractive options on the market. That's a lot of crap. If Arsenal really want to get a number 8, they would get. So I think Arsenal looked into it and they saw Declan Rice cannot play in that number 6 position. He was very poor against Denmark. And the reason as to why he was very poor against Denmark, by the way, again, English fans don't want to hear this. English fans never ever want to, accept the truth. Declan Rice is known, is known the best player to sit at the base of the midfield. So he's not Lodri, he's not Toni Kroos, he's not Jorginho, he's not that caliber of players. And why he does very well at Arsenal is at Arsenal, he has players that are happy to play in front of him, or behind him actually. At Arsenal, he's happy to play in more advanced positions because there is a player behind him that is willing to do a little bit of football control, domination, game control, and game domination and distribution. So I think with Arsenal, now signing a player like Bruno Guimaraez becomes a necessity and becomes a big, big opportunity. He's available for 100 million. That is his release clause. I don't really think Newcastle are going to keep both Isak and Guimaraez. That's number one. Secondly, I also don't think that Arsenal are going to trigger the release clause, but I think there will be negotiations for Bruno Guimaraez in July. Before July, I don't see Arsenal really progress with this deal. I don't see Newcastle really do this deal before July. I think if they need to sell, they're going to need to sell some, 1 or 2 small players, 1 or 2 non-important players or insignificant players to balance the books. And then in July, that is when they'll have their significant sale in order to get some money to spend. So, player plus cash deal. Can Newcastle accept this? The only way I see this happening, if it was to happen for Guimaraez, is if Newcastle are the ones proposing this deal. Now, of course, because of PSR, I reported a little bit earlier today. Not reported, but I was reacting to a story. I think we need to get this straight. I am not reporting these stories. I'm reacting to these stories. So don't take this as BBC or Sky. This is a fun channel where I react to stories. So I will continue to react to stories because I feel like talking about them, right? So The Athletic put out a story saying that all clubs, including Arsenal, we are not special, will work towards PSR, and PSR is going to be a big factor in what all clubs do this summer. So that means that Newcastle, Aston Villa, Arsenal, Chelsea, they're going to do deals that maybe you didn't expect them to do, because like Douglas Luiz at Aston Villa going to Juventus in a player plus cash deal, that is crazy. Like, how can that happen? And they're not even getting Weston McKennie Villa. They're getting, I think, Ealing Jr. and some other guy that we don't know. And those players are being valued at around 30 million. And they're only going to get 20 million euros, for Douglas Luiz. So I think it could also happen at Newcastle, where we could see a player like Emil Smith-Rowe move over to Newcastle, and a significant amount of money is paid by Arsenal into the bank account for Newcastle. These are the players I would consider first and foremost. Before we get into whether Newcastle will agree. Newcastle need a goalkeeper. Of course, they're very close to agreeing a deal for James Trafford. By the time I put out this video, they will have agreed maybe a deal for James Trafford. But they need a goalkeeper. They have always been big fans of Aaron Ramsdale, and the only reason as to why Ramsdale didn't go to Newcastle is they felt like he was always too expensive. So what if Arsenal positioned themselves in a way that we give them Ramsdale plus 70 million? That means that we will have valued Ramsdale at around 20 million, right? Or we give them 65 million plus Aaron Ramsdale. Again, that means that we will have valued Ramsdale at around 20 or 25 million pounds or euros, depending on the currency they'll agree in. Again, for me, that is a good deal. That would be a very good deal. I would encourage Arsenal to do a player plus cash for Osimhen, a player plus cash for a player plus cash for Guimaraez, and a player plus cash for for anyone. We want, if the money in terms of PSR is a little bit scanty. So Ramsdale plus 70 million, that is a deal you would consider. What about Reece Nelson? Again, Reece Nelson is another player that would suit Newcastle very well. And he's a player that has been linked with a move away from Arsenal. He wants to assess his options. How about we get Reece Nelson, who Arsenal value at around 20 to 22, 23 million euros or pounds. And then, because he's already asked to leave, he's already asked the club to so that he can assess his options. How about we get Reece Nelson, we package him very well, and we send him over to Newcastle plus 80 million. I mean, that would make it 100, or plus 75 million. That would make it close to 100. Again, that for me would be a very good deal. If they don't want to accept to that, if they don't want to agree to that, again, Newcastle, they will want a player they seem to think is good, they seem to think has a future. Ramsdale has a very good future and a big ceiling, and he has worked with Eddie Hall at Sheffield, at Bournemouth before. Not Sheffield, but Bournemouth before. Then that's where Emil Smith-Rowe comes in. When we talk about Emil Smith-Rowe, we talk about quality, we talk about a big prospect, we talk about homegrown, England international, and we also talk about one of the big talents that we have in the Premier League. But we also talk about a player who could start a lot of games for Newcastle, especially now that they have given Sandro Tonali that kind of ban. So he might come back a little bit later in the season, or a little bit after the season has started. So Emil Smith-Rowe plus 60 million. I don't think Newcastle, I think they will turn it down because, again, they know Bruno Guimaraez is one player you don't just get. But when they consider their PSR position and they consider their, bank accounts and they consider the fact that they need to sell, players in order to buy, and they already want a player like Emil Smith-Rowe in that midfield to cover up the Tonali hole in midfield. ESR could be a very good asset to Newcastle. Guimaraez is a very good asset to Arsenal, and we give them 60, maximum 65 million. So I think a plus cash deal, I can see how that works, but can Newcastle really agree to this deal? Difficult to say, but this is what I'm going to say. If Newcastle fail, they're not going to sell Alexander Isak. That much we know. So if they fail to get a good club that wants to buy any of their crop players earlier on, they might be forced to agree a deal with some big giant, that being Man City, that being Arsenal, that being, regardless of who comes in, for a player like Bruno Guimaraes. So a player plus cash deal, in my opinion, isn't that bad for Newcastle. I wouldn't say it's bad for Newcastle, right? For me, the player I would give to Newcastle, I've just talked about the options, right? And of course, they would get an English player as well, which will work for them. But for me, the player that I think Newcastle would need is Fabio Vieira. Calm down. Don't throw stones at me. Calm down. Calm down. Why I think Fabio Vieira is the player I would give to Newcastle is he is a midfielder, left-footed, and they need someone that replaces Tonali like for like. Right? Tonali is not a defensive midfielder. I wouldn't categorize him as a defensive midfielder. I think Tonali is more of a progressive midfielder like CM. He's got some defensive abilities, but I think with Fabio Vieira in that team, alongside Joe Linton, alongside when they sell Bruno, they've got to go and get some good replacement. Right? So they could go and get Yusuf Fofana, they could go and get maybe Amadou Onana, anyone, right? Someone who can do a bit of what they have in Guimaraes. So I think the player that you pitch to them, the player that I would pitch to them would be Fabio Vieira. Give them Fabio Vieira, add 70 million or add 69 million. I don't think he's really valuable at the moment, but he's quite a very good player. Right? It's quite a very good player. And also, even when you have Sandro Tonali in the team, Fabio Vieira will still play in a number 10. Vieira wants to leave Arsenal to get more game time. Newcastle are looking for that creative spark in midfield. Fabio Vieira is the guy. So I think if we can agree a deal, if we can give them Fabio Vieira and agree how much we add, then definitely. But it's gonna be very difficult to get Newcastle to agree a deal for Guimaraes. First and foremost, I think they want to keep. There's no question about that. They want to keep him. Secondly, I think if they were to sell, they would want clean 80 million. I really don't believe this talk of them. We are not selling for anything below 100 million. You are in a financially difficult place. So you've got to cash in on some of your good players. So I think the best alternative they have, the best solution for them, is to see themselves cash in on some players, right? And Guimaraes at 80 million, that's a good deal. How much did they get him for? Like, what, 40? 45? I bet it was below 60. So you bring in, you sell Guimaraes, you make a 25 million pound profit on him. That's already very good for your PSR. You can go and buy players. You can replace him very well with a player less than 60 million, and then you're in a good place. So I think they will want clean money over a player plus cash deal. They'll want clean money because when I look at Newcastle, they already have their plan set. They already know who's going to come in which position, and how much they're going to spend. So I don't think they would want to entangle, unless Arsenal have a player who Newcastle already have in their plans as one of them that they're going to sign this summer. Then I would see such a deal happening. But it wouldn't be a bad deal, honestly. It wouldn't be a bad deal. I would even say I would give them Fabio Vieira and add another player like Reece Nelson. Reece Nelson plus Fabio Vieira in order to upgrade this deal. I've just seen Declan Rice in that midfield six. I'm not convinced in any way, shape, or form. I'm not convinced that Declan Rice is the next number 6 at Arsenal or even for England. Unless Mikel Arteta is going to massively work on him, unless Mikel is going to really work on him, he's got to play. Like for me, when I watch Germany and I look at Robert Andrich is Declan Rice. Okay, of course, Declan Rice has got more to his game than Robert Andrich, but defensively and being the bodyguard for Toni Kroos, I think if you had a player like Jude Bellingham, if Jude Bellingham's patience on the ball and because his ability is unquestionable, his ability can reach Toni Kroos levels in the future. But right now, the patience a player like Toni Kroos has on the ball, if Jude Bellingham's patience on the ball was like anything close to Toni Kroos's, or if they could get Kobbie Mainoo and replace in that midfield, have Kobbie Mainoo and Declan Rice and how do Germany set up? They set up with Robert Andrich, Toni Kroos, Ilkay Gundogan in midfield. So Ilkay Gundogan could be Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice, and Kobbie Mainoo. You just get rid of the rest of the players in that midfield. Just get rid of them. Like, what Deckers does a lot is he wins the ball back well. And when you look at that midfield for Germany, Gundogan and Kroos are very, very tight. They don't have the legs. So at 29, Robert Andrich has a lot of experience, and he plays as if he's a 19-year-old, 18-year-old without the ball. So that is Declan Rice. That is what Declan Rice has got to do. And what I loved with Gareth Southgate today, he talked about the lack of a Calvin Phillips. And I usually talk to Glenn, and again tonight we'll be talking on the Cossy and Glenn podcast on his channel and probably on my channel as well. Today, Southgate said, we are looking for someone like Calvin Phillips. That is what they're lacking. That is what you don't have. And that's what Arsenal have in Partey and Jorginho. If we cannot get someone like that to replace those two, just keep them for next season and the season after that and the season after that. So, player plus cash deal, could it happen? Let's see. I'm enjoying the Euros, so sorry for the little bit of sluggish videos. I'll keep you posted, of course. I'll keep you posted.